Imagine flying over calm blue waters on a clear American afternoon. Sunlight glimmering across the Atlantic, the sky perfectly calm, every instrument reading normal. Then, without warning, the horizon disappears. Your compass begins spinning. Your radio fills with static. Time feels slower, heavier. The ocean below grows darker, almost black. You call for help, but your voice vanishes into silence. And just like thousands before you, your aircraft becomes one more mystery swallowed by the most dangerous zone in American maritime history. This is the place where logic collapses, navigation fails, and reality feels thin, as if you're crossing into a world not meant for us. This is the Bermuda Triangle. For centuries, the region between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico has held a reputation that no other stretch of ocean on Earth carries. Ships vanish without distress calls. Commercial aircraft lose contact mid-flight. Entire crews disappear from vessels found drifting quietly on open waters. And long before modern technology existed, early explorers wrote about lights hovering above the sea, strange compass behavior, and sensations that made even hardened sailors feel watched by something they could not see. The triangle has never been just a location. It has been a warning whispered through time. But to understand why America became obsessed with this region, we have to return to the earliest accounts, long before the term Bermuda Triangle ever existed. When Christopher Columbus crossed these waters in 1492, he recorded in his log a series of events that disturbed even his experienced crew. His compass began to behave strangely, drifting unpredictably. On one night, he witnessed a glowing object rise from the ocean and move through the sky before disappearing at incredible speed. His men panicked, believing they had entered a cursed part of the world. Columbus, confused but determined, pressed onward. But what he witnessed would later be echoed by pilots, sailors, and scientists centuries later, suggesting that whatever haunts these waters has been here far longer than America itself. Still, the Bermuda Triangle didn't become a national fascination until the mid-20th century, when modern navigation and aviation should have eliminated mystery, but instead created far more. The event that ignited America's obsession was the disappearance of Flight 19 in 1945. 5 perfectly functioning U.S. Navy Avenger bombers took off from Fort Lauderdale on a routine training mission on a sunny afternoon. These were trained military pilots, experienced and disciplined. The weather was clear, nothing suggested danger. But as the squadron reached the area of the triangle, their communications began to break down. Their compasses malfunctioned. They reported that the ocean didn't look right, as if they couldn't tell where they were. Their voices grew tense, their words fragmented. Then, silence. All 5 aircraft vanished without leaving a single piece of debris. The rescue planes sent to find them also disappeared. In a single day, America lost 14 pilots and an entire rescue crew. No bodies, no wreckage, nothing. The investigation left more questions than answers. The report simply stated, "Cause unknown." This was the moment the Bermuda Triangle entered American culture as a symbol of unexplained danger. It became a reminder that even with the most advanced aircraft and skilled pilots, some places on Earth still defy our technology. But the mystery didn't end with Flight 19. In 1918, before anyone used the term Bermuda Triangle, the USS Cyclops vanished with 309 people aboard. It was one of the largest ships in the U.S. Navy. The ocean was calm, the ship was structurally sound, yet it disappeared without sending a distress signal. It remains the single largest non-combat loss of life in U.S. naval history. No debris was ever found, no evidence, no explanation. And strangely, its disappearance happened inside the exact region that would later be known as the Triangle. Stories like these kept multiplying. A commercial aircraft en route to Miami vanishes mid-flight, the pilot's last message describing a strange haze surrounding the plane. A luxury yacht is found adrift near Bermuda, food prepared on the table, the engine functioning, but not a single person on board. A cargo ship disappears without weather issues, only to be found months later abandoned, with no sign of the crew. Even modern Coast Guard reports acknowledge the unusual number of unexplained vanishings in the area, though they avoid using the phrase Bermuda Triangle in official documents. Scientists have tried to offer rational explanations. The triangle is home to unpredictable weather patterns, strong underwater currents, sudden storms, powerful downdrafts that can force aircraft toward the sea. There are methane gas pockets on the seafloor that can erupt, reducing water density and causing ships to sink rapidly. But while these theories explain some disappearances, they fail to account for the most disturbing cases, the ones with no distress calls, no wreckage, and conditions too calm to justify catastrophe. Pilots describe entering sudden walls of clouds that appear out of nowhere. Radar shows aircraft deviating miles off course within seconds. Some pilots report what they call electronic fog, a strange white haze that wraps around the plane and scrambles instruments. Clocks behave strangely, radio calls drop instantly. When the fog dissipates, the aircraft finds itself hundreds of miles away or shockingly close to missing obstacles. These accounts are too frequent, too consistent, and too detailed to be dismissed as imagination.
Satellite images show magnetic anomalies in the area, suggesting parts of the triangle have an unusually strong or distorted magnetic field. This could explain why compasses behave strangely, but again, it doesn't explain the lack of debris from so many vanishings. Deep-sea scans revealed trenches and underwater caverns unlike anywhere else in the Atlantic. Some are so deep that modern submarines struggle to reach them. Oceanographers studying the region have detected violent undersea currents that twist unpredictably, creating conditions capable of sinking a ship without warning. But these natural explanations still feel incomplete. Other theories push into territory beyond conventional science. Some researchers suggest the triangle might sit on an ancient volcanic structure. Others propose that unusual electromagnetic fields could disrupt time perception or distort navigation. A growing group of scientists argue for the possibility of rogue waves, sudden formations that can reach heights of 100 feet, powerful enough to snap a ship in half without leaving floating remains. And then there are the theories many dismiss, but millions still believe. Extraterrestrial involvement, underwater civilizations, portals or vortexes, and unidentified aerial phenomena connected to the ocean floor. What makes the Bermuda Triangle impossible to fully explain is that no single theory covers all incidents. Some disappearances suggest violent forces, others appear calm and quiet. Some involve advanced aircraft, others involve ships with experienced captains, and a few involve vessels found completely intact, as if the people on board simply vanished into thin air. Even today, disappearances still occur, far fewer than decades ago, but enough to remind the world that the mystery is far from over. Planes report temporary loss of communication while crossing the region. Ships detect anomalies in their GPS systems. Pilots describe seeing lights beneath the water moving at unnatural speeds. Commercial aircraft occasionally drift slightly off course before correcting. These events rarely make headlines, but they continue, quietly adding to the legacy of fear and fascination surrounding the triangle. For Americans, the Bermuda Triangle represents something deeper than a maritime mystery. It challenges the belief that science has solved everything. It reminds us that despite satellites, GPS, and advanced radar, the world still contains pockets of the unknown, places where history, nature, and unexplained forces collide. The triangle stands at that crossroads. It holds stories of bravery, tragedy, fear, and wonder. And the deeper we explore it, the more we realize that the ocean may still hold secrets far older and far more complex than we imagine. As we begin this journey into the heart of America's most baffling marine enigma, one question rises above all others. What makes this region so different from anywhere else on Earth? The answer is not simple. It lies somewhere in the overlapping layers of science, history, eyewitness accounts, and forces we cannot yet measure. And as we peel back those layers, the mystery only deepens. This is where the search truly begins.
To understand the Bermuda Triangle, we have to explore not just the stories that made headlines, but the quieter incidents, the ones that never reached newspapers but were recorded in logs, radio archives, and personal journals. These accounts reveal patterns that stretch across decades, showing that the Triangle's mysteries are not isolated accidents, but part of a deeper, more consistent phenomenon that has left generations of Americans disturbed and searching for answers. Every event seems to echo the same unsettling theme. Something in this region behaves in ways that defy normal expectations, and once you're inside it, the ordinary rules of navigation, weather, and physics seem to break down. In the years following World War II, commercial aviation expanded rapidly across the United States. Pilots flew routes from Miami to New York, from Florida to Puerto Rico, carrying tourists, businessmen, military personnel, and families. For most flights, the skies were safe, but occasionally pilots reported something strange, a sudden fog that appeared out of nowhere, a drop in visibility, or an eerie calm that felt different from normal weather changes. One of the most chilling reports came from a pilot named Bruce Gurnon in 1970. He took off from Andros Island with his father and business partner. The weather forecast was perfect, the sky clear. But minutes into the flight, a strange cloud formation appeared ahead of them, shaped like a massive tunnel. As they entered it, their aircraft instruments began to malfunction. The compass spun uncontrollably. Static filled the radio. Inside the tunnel, the cloud walls glowed in a way Gurnon had never seen before. He later called it electronic fog. When they finally emerged from the cloud, Miami radar control could not locate them. Moments later, they appeared on radar, over Miami itself, far ahead of schedule. According to their fuel usage and flight time, they had somehow crossed hundreds of miles in minutes. Gurnon insisted he had experienced a distortion in time and space, something that modern science has not been able to explain. His story became one of the most credible first-hand accounts of unusual phenomena inside the Triangle. But the mystery doesn't only stretch across the skies. Beneath the surface, the ocean itself is equally unsettling. The underwater landscape of the Bermuda Triangle is unlike any other part of the Atlantic Ocean. A massive trench known as the Puerto Rico Trench plunges more than 5 miles deep, one of the deepest points in the entire Atlantic Ocean. This trench, combined with complex ocean currents, creates a network of underwater pathways where lost ships could be dragged and hidden forever. Submersible expeditions have shown that the seafloor here drops so sharply in some places that a sinking ship could vanish within minutes, leaving no floating debris behind. This could explain some of the Triangle's disappearances, but again, not all. Many vessels reported calm seas moments before vanishing. Others were in shallow waters with no nearby trenches. And what about aircraft? The ocean floor might hide their wreckage, but it doesn't explain why so many planes lost communication simultaneously, or why their instruments failed so suddenly. Even more unsettling are the cases where ships were discovered completely intact, but without their crews. The Mary Celeste is often mentioned in discussions about ocean mysteries, but it disappeared far from the Bermuda Triangle. Yet similar cases have occurred inside the Triangle itself. One of the most haunting was the disappearance of a schooner found drifting near Bermuda in 1955.
The vessel was in perfect condition, not damaged by storms or rough seas. The sails were up, the radio working, meals laid out on the table, and the engine intact. There was no sign of struggle or panic. It was as if the crew had simply stepped off the boat and vanished into thin air. These ghost ship cases raise questions that no scientific theory fully addresses. If storms or waves were responsible, the vessel would show signs of chaos or damage. But calm, undisturbed interiors suggest something far stranger. Weather patterns in the triangle add another layer to the mystery. The region lies at a crossroads of atmospheric forces. Warm air from the Caribbean meets cooler air from the mainland United States, creating sudden thunderstorms and waterspouts. Pilots have described these storms forming so quickly that radar cannot detect them until it's too late. Winds shift violently in seconds, creating downdrafts powerful enough to drag small aircraft toward the water. Some scientists believe these microbursts might explain certain crashes, but again, the pattern doesn't match every incident. Many accidents occurred during perfect weather, with no signs of storms or microbursts, and some ships vanished while surrounded by calm seas and clear skies. In the 1960s and 70s, as the triangle gained media attention, Americans began sharing personal experiences, stories they never reported officially but never forgot. Sailors described glowing orbs floating above the water, moving in synchronized patterns. Fishermen spoke of hearing deep rumbling sounds beneath their boats, unlike any marine animal they knew. Some pilots reported seeing shapes beneath the water, moving faster than any known submarine. These eyewitness accounts, though anecdotal, all repeated the same themes: strange lights, strange sounds, strange sensations, and sudden environmental changes that felt unnatural.
Modern scientists studying the triangle have focused on electromagnetic forces. The Earth's magnetic field is not uniform, and the Bermuda Triangle sits near one of the places where magnetic deviation can be unusually high. This could cause compasses to point in directions that seem correct but are actually several degrees off, leading ships and aircraft dangerously off course. But here's the complication. Experienced pilots and captains know how to handle magnetic variation. They train for it. They plan for it. They compensate for it. So why would seasoned navigators suddenly become disoriented? Why would multiple instruments fail at the same time? Why would radio communication vanish so abruptly? These questions remain unanswered. Another modern theory involves what scientists call rogue waves. These waves, once thought impossible, can form spontaneously and reach heights of 80 to 100 feet. They strike without warning and disappear just as quickly. Such waves could easily overpower and sink a large ship. But rogue waves don't explain aircraft disappearances, nor do they account for the lack of debris in many cases. So while the theory fits part of the puzzle, the rest of the picture remains incomplete. Some researchers argue that the Bermuda Triangle is home to a combination of multiple dangerous forces: storms, currents, rogue waves, magnetic anomalies, and deep-sea trenches, creating a perfect storm of circumstances where even small mistakes can turn deadly. But even they admit that this doesn't explain everything. There are too many anomalies, too many vanishings under ideal conditions, too many accounts of strange fogs, glowing lights, and instrument failures. And that is where the story becomes far more complex. During the Cold War, classified military documents revealed unusual readings from submarines traveling near the triangle. Acoustic sensors picked up sounds that didn't match any known marine life or human technology. Some recordings detected metallic echoes deep beneath the trench, far below the range of modern submarines. A few scientists suggested the existence of massive underwater caverns connected by tunnels that stretch across the seafloor. If true, a ship could sink into a cavern and be carried far from its original position, making it almost impossible to locate. But these theories remain unproven, as the depths of the Puerto Rico Trench are too extreme for most exploration vehicles.
What makes the Bermuda Triangle so haunting is that every attempt to explain it seems to uncover more questions instead of answers. It is not one mystery, but many woven together. The disappearances are separated by decades, involving different technology, different conditions, different types of vessels, yet they all share the same underlying pattern: sudden loss of communication, disorientation, and vanishing without trace. For Americans, the Bermuda Triangle has become both a symbol of fear and fascination. It represents the idea that even with all our advancements, the world still holds secrets we cannot fully understand. And the triangle sits at the heart of that unknown, a reminder that some places resist explanation, defy logic, and capture the imagination of every generation. As more evidence emerges, the question grows larger, more urgent, and more unsettling. Is the Bermuda Triangle simply a dangerous region shaped by natural science? Or is it hiding something far deeper than we dare to imagine? This question pushes us into the next phase of the journey, where the patterns become clearer, the science becomes more complicated, and the mysteries only grow darker.
As we move deeper into the Bermuda Triangle's long and complicated history, we begin to notice a pattern that stretches across nearly every incident. The closer someone gets to understanding what is happening out there, the stranger the events become. It is almost as if the region resists explanation, as if it shifts its behavior each time we believe we are getting closer to the truth. The triangle does not behave like a single mystery. It behaves like multiple mysteries stacked on top of each other, some grounded in science, others pushing into realms we still struggle to understand. In the late 20th century, researchers began investigating the triangle using new technology: satellites, radar mapping, ocean floor scans, magnetic surveys, and high-altitude weather instruments. They expected these tools to finally solve what earlier generations could not. Instead, they found evidence that only deepened the mystery. One of the most unusual discoveries came from a series of satellite images showing strange hexagonal cloud formations over parts of the triangle. These cloud shapes were so geometrically precise that meteorologists were confused. Similar formations elsewhere in the world had been linked to powerful atmospheric bursts, capable of producing winds reaching 170 miles per hour. These sudden blasts, called air bombs, could capsize ships and force aircraft downward without warning. But the question remained: why do these formations appear so frequently over this one stretch of ocean? And why do they vanish moments later, leaving no trace of the violent forces they produce? At the same time, deep-sea scanning technology revealed massive shapes beneath the ocean surface, structures that did not appear natural. Some researchers suggested that they were rock formations created by ancient volcanic activity. Others argued they resembled artificial shapes, possibly the remains of long-submerged landmasses. Theories emerged linking them to ancient civilizations, but nothing was ever proven. The ocean, as always, kept its secrets locked away beneath miles of crushing water. One of the most controversial discoveries came from scientists studying methane hydrate deposits below the Bermuda Triangle. These deposits, when disturbed, release huge bursts of methane gas that rise to the surface and can reduce water density. In such conditions, a ship could sink almost instantly, dropping straight down before the crew realizes what is happening. Aviation experts argue that methane bursts could also rise into the atmosphere, disrupting aircraft engines by reducing oxygen levels. But critics of this theory pointed out that methane eruptions would leave clear signs: foam, bubbles, or debris, but many vanishings showed none of these. At the same time, military archives from the United States government began revealing strange radar readings detected in the triangle during the 1960s and 70s. Some radar operators reported seeing objects moving at impossible speeds underwater, far faster than any submarine made by the United States or any foreign government. These objects would appear suddenly, accelerate rapidly, then vanish from radar without explanation.
Navy personnel describe them as fast movers, a term still used in classified discussions about unidentified underwater phenomena. Even today, the U.S. Navy rarely comments on these readings, fueling the idea that something beneath the water operates far beyond current human capability. Then there are the accounts from pilots who survived their encounters. Many spoke of losing all sense of direction, of clocks skipping seconds, of compasses spinning so violently they seemed broken, only to return to normal the instant the aircraft left the region. Their experience, like many others, was dismissed in official reports, but it remains one of dozens of similar sightings reported across multiple decades. One pilot flying from the Bahamas to Florida described seeing a massive glowing ring floating in the sky, a perfect circle of pale white light. As he approached, every instrument in the cockpit began malfunctioning. The aircraft's altitude fluctuated wildly despite calm weather. The light grew brighter. Terrified, the pilot veered away and regained control only when the strange light vanished behind him. His experience, like many others, was dismissed in official reports, but it remains one of dozens of similar sightings reported across multiple decades. The deeper we look, the more unsettling the accounts become. Coast Guard logs describe calls from ships moments before disappearing, calls that end suddenly, mid-sentence, with no sign of distress. Fishermen reported watching other vessels vanish into patches of fog that appeared on clear days, the fog dissolving moments later with no sign of the missing ship. Divers exploring shallow areas near the Bahamas found strange magnetic spikes strong enough to disrupt compasses underwater, something rare and difficult to explain. Then came one of the most chilling incidents, the disappearance of the American cargo ship known as the El Faro in 2015. Though officially attributed to a hurricane, investigators noted troubling details. The ship had modern technology, experienced crew, and detailed weather forecasts. But during its final hours, communication began breaking down. The ship drifted off its planned route. Instruments malfunctioned. The crew's final transmissions described confusion and uncertainty that seemed out of place for such a seasoned team. While the storm remains the accepted explanation, many experts still believe something else contributed to the rapid and unexpected loss of the vessel. In the Triangle, patterns repeat. Instruments fail. Communication breaks down. Weather shifts too quickly. Lights appear where none should be. Shadows move beneath the surface. And in every generation, a new set of incidents mirrors the old ones, as if the region itself follows a script that humans cannot understand. Scientists, sailors, pilots, and researchers all agree on one thing. The Bermuda Triangle does not behave like other parts of the ocean. Some call it coincidence. Others call it nature. But more and more people believe something deeper is at work, something ancient, hidden and woven into the fabric of the triangle itself. And now, as we explore the darkest theories that attempt to explain the triangle's mysteries, we step into territory that challenges our understanding of the world. Some theories draw from advanced physics, others from deep-sea science, and some from the edge of human imagination. But all of them share one common belief. There is something in this region we do not yet understand. Something that has remained hidden despite centuries of exploration. As we continue, the question grows sharper. If this place truly holds a secret, what exactly is America's most mysterious stretch of ocean trying to hide? This is where the story takes its most extraordinary turn.
The deeper the investigation into the Bermuda Triangle goes, the more tangled the threads become. After decades of analyzing ship logs, aircraft records, pilot testimonies, meteorological patterns, and even deep-sea data, the region still refuses to give one clean explanation. But one truth is emerging with surprising force. The triangle might not be a single mystery at all. It might be many different mysteries happening in the same place, layered over each other like 100 years of unsolved puzzles. One of the most surprising discoveries came from commercial pilots who flew over the Bahamas corridor at high altitude. They reported that while their instruments worked normally outside the region, the moment they crossed into the triangle, GPS would briefly jump, showing their aircraft dozens of miles from the actual location, only to snap back a few seconds later. Engineers initially blamed simple satellite interference, but the patterns didn't match typical signal disruption. Instead, what they found was something far stranger. The anomalies always occurred in the same rough zone, as if an invisible curtain of distorted magnetism hung over a stretch of open water. And yet no official explanation could lock it down. The U.S. Geological Survey found no iron deposits large enough to warp satellite signals. NOAA reported no weather phenomenon that could trigger synchronized instrument jumps. It was as if the air itself was carrying some kind of electrical tension, flickering in and out like a pulse. While pilots were reporting these events in the sky, something equally disturbing was happening beneath the surface. During a deep-sea mapping expedition near the northern range of the Triangle, autonomous submersibles recorded strange sonar reflections that didn't match any known seabed formation. The images showed massive geometric voids, perfectly straight walls, right angles stretching hundreds of feet, as if the ocean floor had been sliced by some unimaginable force. The crew thought it was a mapping glitch until they deployed a second submersible, then a third, each one confirming the same stark lines disappearing into total darkness. Some oceanographers suggested underwater landslides, but landslides don't carve perfect angles. Others suggested old fault lines, but fault lines never form symmetrical edges. What they had discovered looked more like the aftermath of some ancient collapse or the buried outline of something long forgotten. Above the surface, sailors continued to describe one phenomenon that appears again and again in their journals: walls of fog that rise suddenly, sometimes glowing faintly green or blue, swallowing entire sections of the horizon. Fishermen off the coast of Florida described steering straight into a fog bank that felt dense enough to touch, like a wall of vaporized electricity. Boats inside the fog reported complete silence, as if sound itself had been muted. No waves, no wind, no engine vibration. Only a strange hum vibrating deep in the hull, a frequency they could feel more than hear. And when the fog cleared, compasses spun wildly for several minutes before settling down again. Scientists called these electromagnetic weather pockets, but privately admitted they had never seen anything like them outside this region. And then there is the matter of time loss. Not fictional stories or online rumors, but professional pilots, military and civilian, with decades of experience, reporting the same chilling detail. They would take off at a known time, fly a known route at a known speed, and arrive early by as much as 20 or 30 minutes, with fuel consumption that didn't match the distance flown. Computers recorded no anomalies, weather logs showed no tailwinds strong enough to speed them up, and radar tracking stations insisted the aircraft had never deviated from their expected course. A veteran Florida airman once said that flying through the Triangle felt like the world around him was moving slightly faster than he was, as if time was stretching and snapping back without warning. He had no explanation. Neither did the Aviation Board reviewing his case. For every story that points toward unusual atmospheric energy, there is another pointing toward the ocean itself. The seafloor under the Bermuda Triangle is among the deepest in the Atlantic, filled with trenches, underwater rivers, volcanic scars, and methane hydrate deposits capable of erupting violently. In 2004, researchers off the coast of the Carolinas recorded a burst of methane escaping from the seabed so powerful that it displaced thousands of cubic meters of water in seconds. If a ship had been above the eruption point, it would have lost buoyancy instantly, sinking without leaving debris. But methane eruptions alone cannot explain disappearing aircraft or the sudden shutdown of electronic systems. Even the most generous scientific models failed to tie all the incidents together. That opened a new line of research: rogue waves. Towering, unpredictable walls of water large enough to swallow entire ships, once thought to be maritime myths, are now confirmed through satellite imagery. These waves can reach the height of a 10-story building and strike with the force of a solid wall. They can rise in minutes, leaving no time for a distress call. The Bermuda Triangle sits precisely where several strong ocean currents intersect: the Gulf Stream, the Antilles Current, and deep Atlantic countercurrents. When these collide under the right conditions, they can generate deadly rogue waves. And yet rogue waves cannot account for aircraft disappearing mid-flight. When investigators began combining all this data, strange fogs, time distortions, magnetic pulses, methane eruptions, rogue waves, instrument blackouts, they expected the overlapping explanations to simplify the mystery. Instead, they made it more complex. The triangle didn't behave like a single natural phenomenon. It behaved like a cluster of rare events, each capable of catastrophe, all concentrated in one location, stacking on top of each other like 100 years of unsolved puzzles.
The story becomes even more tangled when you bring in the accounts of people who survived close encounters. A research vessel captain remembered the ocean suddenly turning metallic gray, as if a sheet of liquid steel had spread across the surface. The ship's engine lost power. The radio died, and the wheels spun freely as though the rudder had disconnected. For 8 minutes, the vessel drifted silently, while the sea remained unnaturally flat. Then suddenly, the water darkened back to its normal color. The engine roared to life, and every system rebooted simultaneously without a single mechanical adjustment. When the captain checked his watch, he realized the crew had lost 10 minutes, a gap none of them could explain. Another account came from a Coast Guard helicopter crew searching for a missing fishing boat. The sky was clear, visibility perfect, when a swirling circular cloud appeared beneath them, as if rising from the ocean floor. Their instruments flickered, the altimeter dropped to 0, and they felt the helicopter lurch downward even though the controls showed stable flight. The pilot pushed full power, expecting resistance, but instead the helicopter shot upward violently, as if launched by an invisible force. When they broke free of the cloud, the ocean below was calm, and the strange vortex vanished in seconds. The crew landed shaken, certain they had encountered something they had no training to describe. All of these experiences began to point researchers toward a new possibility. The Bermuda Triangle might be a crossroads of natural forces that rarely appear together anywhere else on Earth. An intersection where oceanic pressure systems, electrical storms, magnetic disturbances, and deep-sea geological activity align in chaotic bursts. When these events overlap, the region becomes unpredictable, almost hostile, capable of disabling instruments, warping navigation, and swallowing vessels with terrifying speed. But even that theory does not satisfy everyone, because woven through the science are events that resist all explanation. Ships vanishing with no debris, aircraft disappearing without a single recorded distress signal, radar targets blinking out of existence in perfect weather, objects reappearing miles away without warning, survivors describing sensations of disorientation, weightlessness, or impossible silence. For every logical answer, the triangle throws 10 new contradictions into the mix. And then there are the centuries-old disappearances that mirror modern ones almost exactly. Long before electricity, satellites, or aviation instruments ever existed. Ancient Spanish ships vanishing without a trace. British naval vessels losing their entire crew with no signs of battle or mutiny. Early American merchant ships drifting ghost-like into harbors, with meals still on the table, but not a soul on board. They lived in a time with no technology to malfunction, no radar to disrupt, no electronics to disable. And yet they disappeared the same way planes disappear today.
It suggests something primal, something older than modern science, has been at work in this region for centuries. As researchers dig deeper, they begin noticing one more disturbing pattern. Many disappearances occur along invisible lines, forming triangular corridors across the region, almost like pathways. The incidents cluster where these lines intersect, forming hotspots of unexplained activity. But the seafloor under these hotspots is some of the most inaccessible on Earth, filled with trenches too deep for most submersibles to reach. It leaves open the possibility that something important lies beneath, something not yet mapped, something that could change our understanding of why this region behaves the way it does. Every new piece of evidence, each magnetic spike, each unexplained time jump, each derelict vessel, each vanishing radar signature, pushes the mystery in a new direction. The Bermuda Triangle is a puzzle that refuses to be solved. Each attempt to pin a single explanation on it only reveals the limits of what we currently understand about the ocean, the atmosphere, and maybe even the forces that govern our planet. And as the investigation continues into deeper waters, stranger events, more missing vessels, and more modern disappearances, one chilling truth becomes clear. The Bermuda Triangle isn't a myth kept alive by old legends. It's a living mystery that continues to evolve, shift, and challenge everything we think we know. And what comes next may be even stranger than everything uncovered so far.
The deeper the search for answers goes, the more investigators begin to realize that the Bermuda Triangle is not defined only by its disappearances, but also by the strange moments of survival. Stories from people who came back with fragments of experiences that defy the rules of physics, memory, and reality itself. These survivors do not speak with dramatic excitement or wild imagination. They speak with the hollow clarity of people who encountered something beyond their understanding. Their voices carry the weight of someone who went to a place they cannot fully describe and returned with only pieces of the truth. One of the most haunting stories comes from a veteran cargo pilot flying from San Juan to Miami. Somewhere over the open ocean, he noticed a long tunnel of clouds forming ahead of him, twisting slowly like a rotating cylinder. He tried to turn away, but the aircraft refused to respond. The controls grew stiff, then light, then stiff again, as if something outside was manipulating the air around the plane. He radioed an emergency call, but his transmission came out distorted, stretched, and garbled like a voice submerged underwater. When he entered this strange cloud tunnel, the world outside vanished into a uniform pale gray. No turbulence, no sound, no horizon, just silence and a faint vibration running through the frame of the aircraft. Inside that tunnel, time felt suspended. He said he could not tell whether he was moving forward or floating still. His instrument spun wildly, showing impossible readings. Fuel gauges froze, altitude dropped to 0, and the compass rotated continuously, unable to find north. Then, as suddenly as the tunnel had trapped him, it released him. The gray dissolved into clear blue sky. His instrument snapped back to life. His radio cleared. Miami Center immediately contacted him, asking why he had not responded for the last 40 minutes. But according to his own cockpit clock, only a few minutes had passed. Even more strange, his fuel consumption matched the shorter time, not the longer one. Radar logs later revealed that the aircraft had jumped dozens of miles in seconds, appearing almost instantly in a new location. Experts could not explain it. They documented the case, closed the file, and quietly admitted that the event did not fit any known category of aviation anomaly. Another unsettling encounter comes from a U.S. Coast Guard rescue swimmer who was lowered into the ocean during a nighttime mission to assist a damaged fishing boat. The sea was unusually calm, so calm that the reflection of the helicopter lights created a mirror-like sheen on the water. But the moment he entered the water, the calmness shattered.
He felt a sudden downward pull, as if something beneath the surface was dragging the ocean itself downward. His harness tightened as the crew above fought to keep him from sinking. The water around him darkened, turning from deep blue to black, swirling in a slow spiral motion. He later described the sensation as being pulled by a force that felt neither like a current nor a wave, but something more deliberate. Then, as suddenly as the tension reached its peak, everything stopped. The water returned to normal. His team hauled him back up, shaken. When he looked down, the black swirl had vanished, as if it never existed. Instruments on the helicopter recorded no turbulence, no downdrafts, nothing unusual. But every member of the crew swore they saw the water twist violently beneath them. As more testimonies emerged over the years, analysts began to identify a disturbing thread connecting them. Many people described moments when the natural world felt unnaturally silent. Birds disappearing, winds ceasing, waves flattening, engines dimming, radios creating white noise. A momentary sense of isolation, as though the world around them had paused. Some described it as stepping into a void. Others said it felt like the air itself was watching. A group of marine researchers studying bioluminescent plankton in the region encountered something similar. Their instruments detected no anomalies, but the entire ocean around them suddenly lit up in a bright, unnatural glow, an intense electric blue that illuminated the surface for miles. It wasn't the usual flickering plankton glow. It was steady, silent, and uniform. The crew recorded video for several minutes before the glow faded abruptly, leaving the water pitch black again. When they examined the footage later, the video showed only darkness. The cameras failed to capture a single second of the glowing ocean they had all witnessed with their own eyes. Not one pixel of evidence remained. They checked the cameras, reviewed the memory cards, ran diagnostics. Everything worked perfectly, except during the exact time the glow had appeared. Events like this began to shift the narrative away from simple weather patterns or geological activity. It raised new questions about whether the region involved environmental conditions that could interfere not only with instruments, but with the very way humans perceive reality. Could the region be a hotspot for rare atmospheric optical illusions? Could the ocean surface reflect certain wavelengths that confuse both human vision and digital sensors? No existing scientific literature offered answers. The investigation simply documented the incidents and moved on. But the strangest reports came not from modern pilots or scientists, but from the earliest records, the journals of 16th and 17th century explorers. These sailors described shimmering lights beneath the ocean surface, moving in patterns like living creatures. They wrote about compasses that behaved like spinning tops, days before iron ships or electronic interference existed. They described storms that appeared out of clear skies, clouds that descended vertically like curtains, and nights when the stars vanished completely, leaving only blackness overhead. Some even recorded hearing distant metallic sounds under the sea, like giant chains being dragged across the seabed. These accounts, centuries old, mirror modern descriptions so precisely that it becomes difficult to dismiss them as exaggerated tales.
One particular log from a British naval ship detailed an eerie phenomenon, where the crew witnessed a series of silent flashes illuminating the sea horizon. At first, they dismissed them as distant lightning, but when the flashes repeated with a rhythm, uniform and consistent, the crew realized they were not watching a storm, but something else entirely. Within minutes, the ship's compass failed completely. The needles refused to move even when shaken. The crew panicked, believing they had sailed into cursed waters. Days later, the ship drifted into port with all equipment restored, the crew exhausted and shaken, but alive. The captain wrote that the ocean had felt alive and observant, as though it was studying them the entire time.
These historical records, combined with modern testimony, paint a picture of a place where familiar laws of nature sometimes bend, sometimes fracture, and sometimes behave as if influenced by forces not fully understood. The idea that the Bermuda Triangle may be shaped by multiple overlapping systems, magnetic shifts, atmospheric anomalies, underwater geology, makes sense, yet fails to explain the precision of how these events seem to target vessels in motion, specifically those passing through certain corridors. This leads researchers to consider a controversial possibility. What if the Bermuda Triangle isn't simply a place where natural forces act unpredictably, but rather a place where those forces align with perfect timing to create temporary windows of instability? Brief moments when the ocean, air, and electromagnetic fields interact in ways that alter navigation, perception, and even time itself. Moments so rare and so short-lived that they go unseen by sensors, but powerful enough to drag ships beneath the surface or erase an aircraft from radar. Some scientists propose that the region lies at the intersection of shifting magnetic domains, massive undersea volcanic networks, and one of the fastest-moving ocean currents on Earth. When these elements synchronize, just for a moment, they may create an environment capable of interfering with navigation, warping radar signatures, or causing catastrophic loss of lift for aircraft. These theories remain speculative, but they demonstrate one truth. The Bermuda Triangle forces experts to confront ideas that stretch the boundaries of what science can currently explain. But even with all these theories, one phenomenon remains the most disturbing: the unexplained reappearances. In several documented cases, derelict ships have been found drifting in perfect condition, with full fuel reserves, untouched supplies, and no signs of struggle. It is as if the crew simply evaporated. Food left on tables, logs left open, engines running, radios transmitting static, no signs of distress, no water damage, no mechanical failure, just empty vessels, abandoned in silence. One such ship was discovered with coffee still warm in the pot, another with navigation tools neatly arranged on the table, as if the crew had stepped outside for only a moment. These ghost ships remain some of the most chilling evidence that whatever the triangle affects, it affects selectively. It does not always destroy vessels. Sometimes it simply removes the people. The deeper investigators dig, the stronger one realization becomes. The Bermuda Triangle might not be defined by one mystery, but an entire ecosystem of mysteries, each one amplifying the next. And as technology advances, the events seem to adapt. Instrument failures occurred today just as they did decades ago, even with modern equipment designed to resist interference. Ships disappear without a trace, even with satellite tracking. Aircraft vanish off radar in skies monitored by some of the most advanced systems in the world. Every attempt to fully understand the triangle only deepens the sense that something lies beneath the surface, something vast, something ancient, something indifferent to the rules we expect the world to follow. And as the investigation moves toward the most recent disappearances, events caught on modern sensors, modern radar, and modern tracking systems, a clearer and far more unsettling picture begins to emerge. The most recent disappearances inside the Bermuda Triangle tell a story that feels different from the historical incidents. It feels closer, sharper, almost more intelligent in the way it unfolds. Modern aircraft with redundant systems still report simultaneous failures. Ships with GPS, satellite communication, and AIS tracking still vanish from every monitoring system at once. The triangle, instead of fading with technology, seems to react to it, almost as if the more the region is observed, the more carefully it hides. One of the most striking modern events occurred in 2017, when a small passenger aircraft traveling from Puerto Rico to Florida suddenly vanished from radar. The weather was perfectly clear, the aircraft was cruising at a stable altitude, the pilot gave no distress signal and reported no abnormalities. Then, in the middle of an ordinary sentence to air traffic control, his transmission dissolved into static. Not broken words, not interference, but a sudden, complete erasure of his voice, replaced by a deep-layered distortion that technicians later struggled to categorize. The radar signature blinked once, then disappeared. Search teams found no debris, no oil slick, no floating fragments. Nothing. It was as if the plane had been erased from reality in the space of a single instant. Families waited for days, hoping for any sign of life, but none came. Experts called it a tragic accident. Aviation analysts blamed an unknown mechanical failure, but those who studied the radar logs saw something else, an anomaly recorded milliseconds before the aircraft disappeared. A small spike in electromagnetic interference, too brief and too localized to match any known source. Investigators filed it away as unexplainable, and another case was added to the long, growing list of vanishings without reason. In 2020, a large commercial cargo vessel traveling from Jacksonville to the Dominican Republic began reporting unusual readings on its navigational systems. The crew radioed that the ocean appeared calm, but their instruments showed fluctuating depths beneath the hull. At one point, the sonar claimed the ship was passing over a chasm thousands of feet deeper than any charted in that region. Moments later, the reading reversed, showing shallow depths, as if the ocean floor had risen suddenly. The ship slowed to avoid grounding, but the water around it remained flat and undisturbed. Minutes later, communication cut out entirely. Satellites lost its signal. No distress call was sent. The ship never arrived at its destination and was never found. Experts attempted to explain the event by suggesting equipment failure or a sudden sinking, but the strange sonar readings raised uncomfortable questions. Why would instruments show rapid, impossible changes in ocean depth? Could something beneath the ship have interfered with sonar waves? Or worse, could the seafloor itself be shifting in ways unknown to modern mapping? The Atlantic Ocean hides mountain ranges, trenches, volcanic vents, and fault lines that remain unmapped despite decades of technology. In the Bermuda Triangle, those hidden structures seem to interact with the water, the air, and the magnetic field in ways that create unpredictable conditions. More recently, oceanographers using unmanned underwater drones sent high-resolution imaging equipment into deep sections of the triangle. In one mission, a drone descended smoothly until it reached a depth of nearly 2 miles. Without warning, its camera feed began to distort. Not in the usual way digital footage fails, but with strange geometric patterns forming across the screen. Triangular shapes, perfect circles, and grid-like flashes that appeared for split seconds before dissolving into static. The drone's sensors recorded rapid temperature decreases, then increases, then decreases again. Pressure readings spiked far beyond normal deep-sea levels, as if the drone had entered pockets of water with different physical properties. Then the drone stopped transmitting entirely. The recovery team never found it. Modern deep-sea drones are designed to withstand enormous pressure, yet this one vanished as if the ocean floor had simply swallowed it. Engineers who reviewed the final transmission admitted privately that the failure did not match any known mechanical cause. Something interfered with the drone systems, but they could not determine what. The question that emerges from all of these modern cases is simple but disturbing. How can an area so heavily studied, so closely watched by satellites, still make entire vessels disappear without leaving a trace?
With today's technology, it is nearly impossible for a modern aircraft or ship to vanish completely. And yet, in this region, it still happens. Some physicists argue that the Bermuda Triangle may sit on a rare intersection of geomagnetic forces, areas where the Earth's magnetic field becomes distorted due to shifting molten iron beneath the crust. These distortions might create momentary spatial irregularities, the kind that could interfere with radar, GPS, and even the perception of time. Such anomalies, while theoretical, have been observed in other parts of the world in tiny, harmless forms. But the concentration and intensity in the triangle appear unmatched. Others believe the answer lies in the ocean itself. The Atlantic is home to some of the planet's fastest-moving water currents, swirling gyres, and underwater ridges that can create unpredictable turbulence. When these forces intersect, they may create massive upward or downward pulls, forces strong enough to sink a vessel quickly or disrupt an aircraft's lift. But this does not explain why these events are so selective, or why some ships pass safely while others vanish permanently. Some researchers look towards atmospheric science for answers, pointing to sudden microbursts, rogue waves, and extreme pressure changes. These could theoretically destroy aircraft or capsize ships within seconds. Yet eyewitness accounts often describe events that cannot be explained by weather alone. Moments of silence, moments when the sky and sea appear unusually still, moments when time seems distorted. And then there are those who consider a more radical possibility, that the Bermuda Triangle may be a natural gateway of some kind, a place where the boundaries between dimensions or realities thin just enough for matter to slip through. While still considered fringe science, some theoretical physicists acknowledge that the universe is filled with unseen forces and structures we barely understand. If certain geological or magnetic conditions aligned perfectly, they argue they might create temporary rifts or distortions. These moments could be brief, unstable, and nearly impossible to detect, but strong enough to pull objects out of their world and into another. Even if such ideas remain theoretical, the triangle's long history of disappearances, strange time distortions, and electromagnetic anomalies encourage speculation. When pilots skip miles in seconds, when ships vanish without debris, when drones are swallowed by the ocean without a trace, it becomes difficult to dismiss the possibility that something extraordinary is occurring. As more research continues, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. The Bermuda Triangle is not simply a danger zone or a maritime mystery. It is a reminder of how much of our world remains unexplored. For all our satellites, sensors, and scientific theories, there are still places on Earth that refuse to be fully understood. Places where the map grows blurry, where instruments fail, where reality feels thin. Perhaps the triangle is a natural geological marvel. Perhaps it is a complex intersection of oceanic and atmospheric forces. Or perhaps it is something far stranger, something that challenges our understanding of time, space, and the laws that shape our world. What makes the Bermuda Triangle America's greatest marine mystery is not simply the disappearances. It is the possibility that beneath the waves, beyond the horizon, and within the storms lies a truth we are not yet ready to uncover. A truth that continues to hide in plain sight, waiting for the next ship, the next aircraft, the next research team to cross its invisible threshold. And until that day comes, the Bermuda Triangle will remain exactly what it has been for centuries: a silent observer, a shifting riddle, and one of the last great unexplained mysteries of our modern world.